The last breath of humanity. It all began in Cairo. The virus arrived silently, like a whisper in the night. The first signs were small, unnoticed. A cough, a fever, a momentary loss of consciousness. But soon enough, people realized something was terribly wrong. The virus spread quickly, consuming the city. Once infected, the victim would die only to rise again. No longer human, their eyes hollow, skin rotting, and every shred of their humanity stripped away. The zombies were born. In the beginning, no one knew how to stop it. Governments scrambled to contain the outbreak, but the virus spread faster than any defense could react. From Cairo, it moved to Europe, to Asia, to the Americas. Within a year, most of the world had fallen. The military tried to keep cities secure, but the onslaught of the undead was overwhelming. Every effort to find a cure failed. Human civilization collapsed, cities turned to rubble, and the world became a graveyard. For a while, small pockets of survivors lived in isolated areas, hoping for a miracle. They tried to rebuild, to reclaim what had been lost, but the infection was relentless. As the years passed, the survivors began to dwindle. The virus was too potent, too fast. Families were torn apart, friends turned into monsters, and every sunrise was a reminder that hope was fading. One by one, the safe zones fell. The last pockets of civilization became nothing more than desperate, dying whispers. The world became silent, save for the groans and snarls of the undead. Among the last survivors was a man named Elias. He had been a scientist before the outbreak, a researcher who had dedicated his life to finding cures for diseases. Now, he was the last of his kind. Elias had seen it all. His family, his colleagues, his friends, everyone had been lost to the virus. He had watched as humanity, once full of promise and innovation, crumbled into dust. There was no one left to talk to, no one left to comfort him. His days were spent alone in a dilapidated laboratory, surrounded by piles of failed experiments, desperate notes, and empty vials. The world outside was nothing more than a wasteland, populated only by the undead. Yet, Elias held onto a thread of hope. He refused to believe humanity was truly finished. Every day, he worked tirelessly, trying to find a way to stop the virus. He studied the infected, searched for patterns in their behavior, hoping to discover something that could reverse the damage. But with each passing day, the virus seemed to evolve, becoming more resistant, more insidious. One cold evening, while Elias sat hunched over his desk, staring at a blood-soaked sheet of paper, he heard something, a noise, faint but unmistakable, a low growl. His heart raced as he grabbed his gun and moved toward the door. The zombies had found his shelter. It was only a matter of time before they would break through. The door shuddered with the force of the blows. Elias knew it wouldn't hold much longer. He quickly scanned the room, grabbing what little equipment he could: his journal, a few vials of his experiments, and a flashlight. There was no escaping this. He had tried to run before, but it always ended the same way. This was it. The end. As the door splintered and the first zombie stumbled into the room, Elias took a deep breath. He wasn't afraid of dying. He had accepted that long ago. What terrified him was the thought that all his work, all his years of struggle, had been in vain. That the last human being on Earth would die without ever finding a solution. That humanity's final chapter would be written in blood and decay, without redemption. The zombies poured in, their decaying hands reaching for him, their mouths snapping. Elias fired his gun, taking down the first few, but he knew it wouldn't be enough. The room was small, and soon the air would be thick with the stench of death. He closed his eyes for a moment, remembering his family, his wife, his daughter, and the life he had once known. It felt like a lifetime ago. The zombies were closing in now, their gnashing teeth just inches away. Elias raised his gun one last time. His hands trembled, not from fear, but from the sheer weight of the world's end bearing down on him. He had fought so hard for survival, but in the end, it was all for nothing. There would be no cure, no second chance. He had failed. Humanity had failed. As the first zombie lunged at him, Elias fired one final shot, and the world went dark. As the first zombie lunged at him, Elias fired one final shot, and the world went dark. When he opened his eyes again, it was silent. The horde was gone. The laboratory, the world was still. But it was not the peace of death, it was the silence of the end. Elias lay motionless, his body cold, and around him, there was only stillness. The last human was no more. Outside, the wind howled, a constant reminder of the world's decay. In the distance, the faint sounds of the undead could still be heard, wandering aimlessly, searching for their next victim. But they would never find one. There were no more humans to consume. The earth, once teeming with life, was now an empty shell, a place where only memories lingered. The last breath of humanity had been taken, and with it, the final trace of a once great civilization faded into the void.